Hello and welcome back to Heart and Hand. I'm your host, Adam Thornton. On tonight's show, it's a very short show actually. We're going to try a little tactics talk Bitesize. For those of you who listen to us on Patreon, you'll know that we have a regular tactics show where we break down things that we've seen in the game. We look at stats and analytics and try to understand why things happen the way that they do on the park. We thought we'd bring this to YouTube and we thought we would make use of Tactics Pad purely because there was quite an interesting point in the game at Ibrox on Saturday with Ross County. So we thought we would have a little chat through what we thought was a pretty key moment in the game and the impact that that had on the game. Joining me for this is my usual Tactics Talk buddy, Ali. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no worries. Good to have you. So yeah, as we said, Rangers won 2-1 against Ross County yesterday. It was, I guess, a pretty standard lineup. I think the only surprise really would have been Malik Tillman not coming into, not being in the starting lineup. Ali, I think we probably expected that Cantwell might come in, but I don't know about you, but I thought maybe it would be Sakala that missed out there. So I think from the starting lineup, I think that was probably the only major surprise that I had.
Definitely, especially against the sort of deeper back lines. I figured they'd go for more of a creative, I guess, second striker, sort of third attacking midfielder, if you like. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I thought he did a decent first half. Certainly got a couple moves of penetration, but obviously as we'll get into in the show, I guess it was more into the second half when Ross County really bunkered down. That's when you start to see the problems that Sakala has in there, just based on the lack of space he's got to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get into that in a second. The change that I think was key in this game, and it's something that Michael Beale referenced in the post-match press conference, was the injury to John Lundstram. Still awaiting a scan on it. I think he said he rolled his ankle. Hopefully it is not too bad. But the change there that I found really interesting on the pitch, and I asked the manager about afterwards, was John Lundstram coming off. Which we'll obviously illustrate here on the little tactics pad. But then instead of, I think most people, and the manager did say, including his backroom staff, thought he would have brought on Glenn Kamara at this point, just a like for like. You've set up in this shape. This is what you've been working towards for a couple of days. We'll just do that. It's an unforeseen injury. We'll just do that and it'll be quite safe. Instead, what he did, Ali, was brought on Malik Tillman. Now, Tillman is a lot more attacking than John Lundstram, but he has been playing as a central midfielder anyway, certainly for the most parts under Michael Beale. However, he didn't play here. I'm going to try and jig it around. I'm not actually sure I'm going to be able to fit them all in, to be honest, but I'm going to try. So instead of Tillman playing as deep as he had, we almost had this sort of, the manager referenced it. He specifically said that we end up playing with 3 number 10s. And 2 number 9s. So Cantwell, Tillman and Ryan Kent behind Morelos and Sakala. What he did say was it worked because it forced the goal. You think Todd Cantwell ended up coming down this side to link up with Morelos, and then Tillman comes into the box late to finish the chance just before half-time. So it worked as far as the manager was concerned because it forced the goal. But what he said was he felt it made the game a little bit too end-to-end for his liking. Now, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this because, like I said, long-term listeners to the show, or both of us at any point over the last few years, will know that we've sort of been of the opinion that this type of setup at home to these type of teams would be something that we don't quite understand why it doesn't happen more often, with one of your sort of more traditional sitting midfielders, and then basically having 5 attackers plus the fullbacks getting involved as well. So quite interesting, first of all, Ali, that he made this change after just 10 and 11 minutes. He did say he just wanted to spice it up, take the handbrake off, if you like, given he'd had that opportunity. But it was interesting to find him talking about maybe the lack of stability that it gave us instead of the attacking intent that it might have given us.
Well, there's a couple of things going on here. I think the first one to look at was, and it's always important to reference the opposition, right? The midfielder, I think it was is it Kenny? He pronounced it. The central midfielder was pretty much man marking Kent wherever he went, right? So if you figure Kent's our main link guy and he's not getting free, Cantwell's involved in the build, dropping deep to pick up the ball. You now need someone to try and link the forwards, right? You don't ideally want Sakala coming in, and if Morelos comes in to get it, then really you then don't have ability to get balls into the box of Sakala. So I think for me, having an extra player in there that if Kenny was going to man mark, Now he's got two to deal with, right? Laturi liked to get forward, and certainly Danda for sure was playing underneath the strikers in transition. So there's an opportunity there, I think he's looked at to say, well, they're in rest defence, pretty much sitting with two in front of the back line. Therefore, now we've got an extra player to play forward to in Tillman that, could potentially disconnect those central players for Ross County. There were some times during the match where Brophy would drop back in, Danda would drop back in. They'd almost sit in this real long, flat line. Even going back to when Lundstram was in the field, there was an opportunity where he tried to switch it. Ross County picked up the turnover and countered forward and lucky not to score. So there was opportunities then by flooding the middle of the field. But I think for me, that substitution was an interesting one because, like you said, he could have went with a safe bet in Kamara, but just putting another guy in between the lines, just changed it up a little bit, gave us another forward option.
Yeah, and I guess you can see here, like you said, obviously Ross County, the manager said himself, they came very bold. They sort of always do, I think, and it's worked for them. I think they got 7 goals against us last year, which was the most any team scored against us in the league last year. So we remember those end-to-end games, the 3 each up there. There was a 4-2 under Gerrard, I'm sure, at Ibrox as well. So they always do come in and have that go. And like you said, 3-5-2 at Ibrox, and it was 3-5-2. It wasn't 5 at the back. They switched to 5 at the back, which we'll come to. So it makes sense from that point of view, I guess, because as we've sort of nicely illustrated here, you've then got Tillman in this little pocket, or whoever else it is that decides to come and roam. And then obviously you see by that goal, like we said, Cantwell bringing the ball, Morelos getting the ball here, Cantwell chipping it back, and then Tillman basically arriving, I guess, as you would want a number 8 or a number 10, right? Arriving late into the box to header that. So I can kind of understand what Michael Beale said there. One of the other things he said was he felt that the attackers were maybe getting in each other's way a little bit as well. And like you said there, it's probably quite congested. We're adding another attacker in. He did say the fullbacks had to change how they played. So normally you'd maybe have, I don't know, Tavernier and Barisic up here at various points, but they sort of stayed a little bit deeper. Probably to protect a little bit, Ali, in terms of any breaks that might be happening. But then also, I guess, just because there is no space. Kent's coming out here, Cantwell's moving here. Sakala likes to drop deep as well. What was your thoughts on that? Is that there's obviously a limit to how many attackers you want to have on each line or in attack, etc. But is that maybe something that isn't insurmountable in that you can work with those 5 attackers and get them to move in different ways than they would if there was maybe only 4 of them? Or is it just getting to the stage where 5 against a tight defence might be a little bit too much and less is maybe more?
I think that. I think also maybe the scout report said that they don't deal with cross balls from deep better than potentially perhaps the end line. Like for example, Morelos peeled a lot, and we saw that for in the first half, peeling a lot onto Iacoviti. There was a chance he had at the back post, and they've maybe identified him as being the weaker of the 3 centre backs, that they're trying to get him in those situations. Barisic put over a couple of lovely balls, and there wasn't usually when Barisic is putting those balls in, you can see if someone's making that inside run that they're trying to maybe create some build-up play. It didn't really look that way. So again, maybe it's on the right-hand side. That's where they've tried to isolate it. I guess the other thing as well is getting your fullbacks to the end line. Like we've mentioned there, now you're thinking about counter press. If Kent, Tillman and Cantwell are on the edge of the box, really you've got Jack defending the entire width of the field. It's just too big an area. And then obviously if White and Brophy stay high, you're leaving yourself 2v2. So I think there's an element of caution there. But I think the major thing for me was Tillman's strength, dribbling, top of the box. That was the entry ball a lot of the times, right? There's very few hit the striker's feet, get it back. It was Tillman carry it, get shots away, get attacking entries through the middle. Yeah,
and I felt like it maybe took us a little bit of time to adjust to it. I think Tillman came on in the 11th minute. I felt like when we got to maybe around about 25-30, we sort of started to find our rhythm. There was a lot of blocked shots or maybe missed chances or that just little bit of finesse in the final third that we didn't have. But it really felt like we were turning the screw, varying the attacks down the left, down the right, the crosses from Barisic that you mentioned in that first half, until we finally got that breakthrough. I was really pleased with that 20 minutes. I thought I could see that working very well. And I thought that was a really, really decent end to the half. Maybe the best period of sustained pressure at Ibrox than I can remember for a while, to be honest, in terms of not just an onslaught, if that makes sense, Ali, not just hammering balls up, but like nice and methodical and actually sort of thinking it through and trying to pick the lock, if you like. However, second half, we never really got going there. I think we've always got a tendency to blame ourselves in that period, and I think absolutely we probably came out and weren't as quick and on it as we had, maybe because we'd gotten the goal. But you noticed there was a little bit of a Ross County switch up as well that might have had a little bit of an impact on us too.
Well, I think with Brophy going off and Simon Murray coming into a sort of inside left position, you know, and this is a tough part whenever you talk about tactics, right? Because Murray's obviously an attacking player, but when you're talking about the defensive phases for, let's say, Rangers have the ball, Ross County drop into two lines defensively with the back five and the midfield four. You know, there's only now so many opportunities, so many angles to get those forward passes. So really, I think some of the problems came from, you know, making those forward entries from centre-back, making the passes out wide. Now the full-backs aren't able to pick it up as easily because they've now got someone on the inside. If the wing-backs come up and press, now there's two people blocking across rather than one earlier on in the game where the full-backs had a little bit more time and space. So by just dropping a player in there, again, although Murray's an attacking player, it gave them the opportunity now to maybe try and create one or two more transitions. If we stuck with that same attacking, you know, very aggressive formation, now the distances are a lot bigger when we turn the ball over. So it was interesting timing that Beale made the change, and obviously the person that he brought on, you could argue it was a negative substitution, but I think as the game played out, what you saw was it was needed in order to try and readdress the balance of the game, I think.
So it's quite interesting then that we've started in a certain way. We've changed something. Ross County didn't necessarily change for the rest of that first half, but then at half-time they've came and went a little bit more solid, that 5-4-1. They started coming into the game a little more because they'd negated that attacking thrust that we had. And then, like you said, 60 minutes, was it, bang on? Beale takes Sakala off and brings on Kamara. And then almost goes back to that shape again, right? That kind of 4-3-3, if you like, with Tillman a little bit deeper and Jack and Kamara in there. And as you said, the unfortunate point about that is within about 2 minutes, Ross County had scored a corner after some really poor, sloppy defensive play by Rangers anyway. I don't actually think it was a corner in the first instance. I think it kind of Tillman cleared it and it came off someone else. But then McLaughlin obviously does what he did in that game and came for the ball and didn't get it. Not by any fault of tactics, I guess, and not by any fault of Kamara coming on. But if that hadn't happened, then are you of the opinion that obviously that would have stabilised us a little more? It's quite strange to do that when you're 1-0 up and the game's still in the balance, I guess, isn't it? But is there maybe a case here, and we spoke about this before, bringing on a more sort of defensive player or a defensive midfielder and having that too there? Is there maybe a case of maybe a little bit of cat and mouse there? We know that Ross County are maybe going to start to get a little bit restless and try and come out to get a goal. They've played quite well in the game. So if we bring on someone, a further line back of pressure, and we've got more chances, more possession in deeper areas, we might sort of drag them out a little bit. Like I said, maybe a bit of cat and mouse and then try and hit them in the spaces. Do you think, obviously the goal changes things, but was that maybe a little bit of the thinking there, that it's possibly can be seen as a defensive move, but it's maybe more of a sort of tactical chess move?
I think so. And again, the goal obviously clouds it, right? Because game state tells you need to try and get control of the ball again. Ross County, didn't do a lot different after that. I think they subbed off Danda and brought on another sort of defensive midfield player.
Callahan.
There you go. So in those instances, you could argue they've got a little bit more to protect now. But I think what the change also did was it looked structurally at what's the weakest point in Ross County's 5-4-1, and that's the spaces between their left back, left midfield, and left centre back, for example. So on the screen right now, where Kent stood, if you just drop him a little bit deeper, right, we can look in those positions. Who picks him up now? Does a centre back step? Does a midfielder drop back? If Tavernier goes forward, who's now picking up those forward runs on the inside? It's in those half spaces, we call them, that it's the structure, the weakest point. So whoever makes the movement now to compress the ball, in theory, there's now a gap opens up to create what we call a free man, someone to make a run that's unmarked. And I think that's what we started to see, where Tillman would overload on the left. They would start to pull players out of the back line. Now Morelos can isolate Jakubowicz the back post again. And we're starting to see Ross County having to come out of their shape rather than staying compact and working left to right within it, which they did for, a decent part of the start of the second half.
Yeah, we've not seen it for a while, actually, but there was quite a lot of, I noticed, Tavernier coming in on the half space, but then sort of just staying in here as well. Like back that almost back to goal thing that he did. God, it feels like a million years ago, but maybe it was in 55 season and then maybe bits of last season. So again, that's just sort of disrupting if they've made a change at half time and they've sort of went a little bit more solid with those sort of two banks. Let's just try and disrupt that way then as well. They don't have the sort of wide men or the attackers that they had up top in the first half, so we can be a little bit more creative with it. Like you said, the goal sort of clouds it, I guess, for Ross County, and then probably our goal clouds it as well. We don't really have much evidence that these tactical tweaks that we spoke about were a success. Obviously, we got the goal in the first half through Cantwell, which you could say, through Cantwell's assist for Tillman, which you could say was a positive. But I guess it's not really about that here, is it? It's just sort of showing the different things that are happening at the minute under Michael Beale. And in this game, I think we've seen 2 or 3 different game plans, I think, that he's maybe used in the past, but all of them sort of within this little hour or so, which I found quite interesting.
Yeah, and again, you've got to be confident that if we hadn't scored the free kick, someone else would have, right? We've knocked on the door quite a lot in that second half. So maybe, you could argue the goal gives them the opportunity to take the foot off the gas a little bit, figuring that, okay, well, we sort of are where we are. And then the heart attacks happen rather from the set pieces at the end of the game. But overall, it was a solid performance. I think, like you mentioned there, mate, that the tactical changes, ultimately what Beale's trying to do is set the team up to get the players in the right positions, right? Is to give us the best chance of being successful, almost increasing your chances of winning. It's then up to the footballers to go make it happen. And if you've got Ryan Kent on fire, Cantwell on fire, Morelos on fire, maybe yesterday's a different game, right? Maybe they score a couple more goals. I think we're still finding, a lot of those relationships are still sort of percolating, and even just putting one new player in there is going to change that, right? Just based on runs and movements. But I think what I was glad with was, he didn't look at it and say, hey, I've made this change, I'm going to lose face if I go back on it. He just did it because that's what he needed to do. And that's what the best coaches do and the best managers do. So. And I'm glad he did it.
No, that was good. That sort of it lets us in a little bit more, doesn't it? It gives a little bit more insight. He's not afraid to make that type of change in there. But then similarly, after an hour, he's not afraid to go back again. It doesn't mean it's failed. It doesn't mean anything else. Right. But it's just, I'll try that. I'll try something else. So I think that was really interesting. That's the point of doing this little video on it. Okay, Ali, thank you for joining me on this one. Hopefully we can do a few more of these in the future if we see something interesting.
Sure, absolutely, mate. Thanks a lot for having me.
And as always, thank you all for watching or listening, whether it's on Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere. Like I said, we might try and do some more of these in the future. We'll try and keep them to sort of 15, 20 minutes, and we'll use a little tactics pad to try and illustrate what we're talking about. But yes, thank you all for watching.